The bloody feast, a dinner party where guests disappear one by one. I never wanted to attend the dinner. The invitation arrived without a name, without a return address. Sealed in wax the color of dried blood, the paper smelled faintly of iron and smoke, as though it had been pressed against a fire. It was addressed to me directly, though I had told no one where I lived. The words were simple. You are expected at the feast. Midnight were black. Do not bring a guest. I should have burned it, thrown it away, forgotten it. But something in the strokes of the letters pulled me. And when midnight came, I found myself standing before a house I had never seen, yet one that looked as though it had always been waiting. The door opened before I knocked. Candlelight spilled out, soft but wrong. Shadows bending too far, stretching too thin. A servant greeted me without words, bowing low, his face pale and expressionless, as if carved from wax. He led me down a hallway lined with portraits. Each portrait showed a banquet, tables laden with food. But in every one, the faces of the diners were blurred, smudged, half-riesque. Only the long table remained clear, stretching into the distance as though it could never end. I felt watched by the painted eyes, though none of them had pupils. The dining hall was vast, the ceiling lost in darkness. A table stretched from one end to the other, covered in a cloth so white it glowed faintly. Candles stood in silver holders, flames bending as though caught in a draft no one else could feel. Places were set with heavy plates and crystal glasses filled with dark red liquid. Around the table sat the guests, all dressed in black, silent faces pale and hungry. I did not recognize any of them, yet each time I looked too long, I thought I saw something familiar in their features. A neighbor, long dead, a teacher from my childhood, the echo of a friend who had vanished years ago. The host sat at the head of the table, tall, gaunt, dressed in velvet, his smile wide but without warmth. He welcomed us without words, only a gesture, raising his glass. The guests lifted theirs in unison, and I followed, though the liquid inside smelled thicker than wine. We drank it, burned down my throat, metallic and warm, leaving the taste of rust on my tongue. When I set the glass down, the host's smile widened, and the feast began. Dishes appeared without servants, sliding silently onto the table, platters of meat still steaming, bowls of fruit to ripe, bread torn and bleeding with red juices that stained the cloth. The guests ate greedily, tearing at food with their hands, eyes wide, lips shining. I tried a bite, but the taste was wrong, sweet and rotten, filling my mouth with memories that were not mine. Each bite felt like swallowing voices. I pushed the plate away, but the host's gaze fixed on me, deep and heavy, and I found myself lifting another morsel to my lips against my will. The first disappearance happened quietly. A woman 3 seats down lifted her glass, smiled faintly, and then she was gone. No sound, no movement. Her chair sat empty, her plate clean, as if she had never been there. None of the other guests reacted. They ate on, chatting softly in a language I could not catch, their voices blending into a hum like bees in a hive. I blinked, shaken, and then another man was gone, his fork clattering to the table, spinning once before falling still. His place vanished too, cloth smoothing itself over where his plate had been. The host raised his glass again, as though to mark the moment, and the candles flickered violently. One by one, the guests disappeared. Some mid-bite food still raised to their lips, some mid-laugh mouths open in soundless joy. Each time their absence left no trace, only a hollow space in the air. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body would not move. The chair held me firmly, my hands stiff against the table. I tried to rise, but my legs trembled as though pinned by invisible hands. The feast pressed on, food replenishing itself, wine glasses filling on their own, the hum of voices deepening as the number of diners shrank. At last, only a handful remained. Their eyes had changed. They no longer looked at the food or the host or each other. They looked at me. Their lips moved in silent words, mouths stretching too wide, teeth too sharp. The host stood, lifting his glass higher. The room darkened, candles bending inward as though drawn to him. He spoke for the first time, his voice dry, deep, echoing as though from a great distance. He thanked us for our presence. He said the feast was eternal. He said the table would always have room for one more. The last guest vanished. Only I remained. The host gestured to the seat beside him, empty since the beginning. My body moved against my will. I rose, walked, sat. The chair was cold, colder than stone. The host leaned close, his breath sweet with decay, and whispered that the feast was not a meal but a cycle. Each guest fed it not with food, but with their presence. Each disappearance was not an ending, but a contribution. The table swallowed them. The table remembered them. The table grew stronger. And now, he said, it was my turn to join. I tried to resist, but my plate filled again, heaped with meat to raw, fruit to bright, bread to red. My hands lifted the fork though, I fought to keep them still. The host watched, smiling as I took a bite. The taste was thicker this time, warm and pulsing, as though I chewed not food but a heartbeat. The room spun, the candles flared. My name whispered from every empty chair, spoken by voices that should not exist. My vision blurred. I saw the portraits in the hall again, the blurred faces at the banquet tables. One was sharpening, becoming clear. It was mine, and then I understood. No guest ever leaves. The feast is not about food. It is about the slow erasure of self, the quiet absorption into something larger. Each name is consumed. Each soul becomes another shadow at the table, another whisper in the hum, another smudge in the painting, until time erases even that. The feast goes on endless, eternal, feeding on presence, binding all who enter. I speak these words now because the host allows it, because the feast requires a witness, someone to carry the story outside these walls. But know this, if you ever receive an invitation without a name, sealed in red wax, telling you to come at midnight and wear black, do not go. If you pass a house glowing faintly with candlelight, though no one remembers who lives there, do not enter. And if you ever find yourself seated at a table longer than it should be, with faces you half recognize and food that tastes like memory, rise at once, if you still can. Because the feast does not forgive. The feast does not forget. The feast will consume you as it has consumed me. And when the candles flare and the host lifts his glass, you will vanish too, swallowed without sound, leaving nothing behind but the faint whisper of your name added to the endless chorus of the bloody feast.